Let's move on now. Let's do one more open segment before we close out the show tonight. I want to give some thoughts on the whole situation regarding Williams and Logan Sargeant being pulled from his car after Alex Albon crashed his. Williams didn't have a spare chassis. Knowing how the two drivers have performed over the last year plus as teammates, they pulled Logan Sargeant. Williams pulled Logan Sargeant from his car, gave his chassis to Alex Albon for the remainder of the weekend, with the idea that Albon gave them the best chance of finishing in the points and picking up a valuable marker or two in the constructors. Ultimately, Albon came up just short of that, gave it a valiant effort, ended up in P11. He was aided by the opportunity a few cars ahead of Williams in the pecking order, both Mercedes, namely, and Max Verstappen having a combination of engine issues and a last lap crash in the case of George Russell. Still not quite enough, though, to get Albon into the points. So, Brandon, on that note, does Alex Albon's failure to score points prove that maybe this wasn't the best of looks and the greatest of decisions for Williams to bench Logan Sargeant, who didn't make a mistake this weekend when Albon was the one who did?
It certainly doesn't come at a good time, does it? All through this year, it's just been Formula One and American Formula One fans. Andretti, no, we don't think they're going to be a competitive team. We don't think they would provide value to the sport. Your one of your core teams here, when it comes down to it, for mistakes that Logan did not make, he is put aside, and the person you put in there can't even make points. I really enjoyed the video you made on this. I don't know if you made it today or yesterday, but it was very well said on this topic. It's not a good look.
Yeah, I think it was actually, I think it was Friday night. I got the news and just had to get my thoughts out on paper. I thought about trying to turn it into an op-ed for Brock and NASCAR, but then I decided, let's just, throw it straight on my YouTube channel and, just get my thoughts out there as quickly as I can. But, I haven't changed my mind at all. I still strongly disagree with the decision. I do want to address, though, our friend Ed Hunter, who helps us out a lot with Formula E coverage. He commented on the video and did raise a point that I made that he very strongly disagreed with, and that's that when the margins are going to be this tight at the back of the field, even finishing 10th or 9th and only picking up 1 or 2 points, it could very well make a difference. And, I have to acknowledge, Ed, if you're watching this, that is certainly a valid point. And I understand that side of the argument. It's not that I disagree with it from a business decision. Nobody is sitting here, certainly not me, as much as I want to support the only American driver in the sport, the first full-time American in a decade and a half plus. It's very, very difficult to argue Logan Sargeant gives Williams a better chance of points than Alex Albon. I think the opposite is, as close to objectively true as you can possibly get. You can make the argument that the Williams obviously is not a very strong car or chassis that allows him to be competing for very many points, but the proof is how many points Albon picked up last year, how much he was outperforming his equipment, and he ended up with 27 points while Sargeant only ended up with 1, and it comes with the caveat that he finished 12th on track. 2 cars ahead of him got disqualified. That's how he got his P10 and his only point that he scored to date in his Formula One career. I just don't like the optics of it from an ethics standpoint, and I understand that Formula One's never been about that. I mean, you can go back 20 plus years when Ferrari made the swap with Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello on the line to gift Michael a win that he certainly did not need for the championship. I mean, team orders have always been a part of the game here. And, politics are just part of the sport as well. That doesn't mean I have to like it. That doesn't mean I have to be a fan of it or agree with it. And I just think the optics of pulling the driver out of the car that he did not crash, the driver that did not make a mistake, and taking him out of the weekend and compromising his confidence and his morale and his performance potentially going through the rest of the year, to do that to Logan Sargeant when Alex Albon got in the car and ultimately didn't even bring home points, I just think it's not a very good look. And I think a lot of fans, made that opinion very clear. And I have to go back to that one fan on Twitter who said, look, guys, I flew out here from the United States. I'm a big Logan Sargeant fan. I came to this race, and I get off the plane and open my phone and see the news that my favorite F1 driver is not going to be racing this weekend. And I'm sure she was far from the only one. I mean, it's just from an optics standpoint, I really don't like the move. I think again, not that the precedent wasn't there, not that, we haven't seen similar questionable decisions from a business standpoint be made in the sport before. But my biggest feeling was, Albon better bring home the points now. Because if he doesn't, it's going to be an even worse look. And that's ultimately what it ended up being. And just one final point before, I don't know, Brandon, if you have any more thoughts to add here, but I don't want this to, I don't want to be seen as, coming down hard on Alex Albon here either, because I think Albon got a lot of criticism for, putting out the statement that he put out and saying, look, Logan has been a total pro and handled this with, total class and total professionalism. And he got some comments in response to saying, well, why did you accept the offer then? Why did you not tell Williams no? And it's like, well, he's an employee of the team as well. I don't know, but that was necessarily his choice. The team made a decision that he was going to race this weekend. He has to obey the team just as much as Logan does. And I mean, credit to him. He went out there, gave it his best shot, but came up short. And because he came up short again, I just think that it doesn't look good for Williams that they made this swap and really didn't come out better for it.
Yeah, people are pointing fingers at Alex Albon. They got their gaze in the wrong direction. This is strictly at Williams, and I can remember the leadership change there. It's probably more years ago than I think it is, but I remember when they had that big team principal change. Goodness, was it like 2020 or 2021? Probably.
Well, that was when Claire Williams stepped aside, but James Valve is there now. I think he started at the beginning of 23. So there's been some turnover in leadership for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, still, like clearly the weakest link of, not to use a game show reference, the weakest link of the Formula One grid with these two. You said it when you talked about his confidence level. I can't imagine what that would do. Just to even your team, when it's something happens that's not your fault, even they don't believe in you to pull out a point. Which, I mean, to your, as you said, his track record has shown that he's a little bit accident prone in these in the limited starts he's had. Not always, but I mean that it's also Williams though. So what do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, again, I know your main performance comparison is going to be against your teammate, but he's not driving a Mercedes. He's not driving a Ferrari or a Red Bull or even a McLaren or Aston Martin. He's in a Williams, and to be frank, Williams have not put together a very strong car in several years now. And again, I think it speaks very highly of Alex Albon that he picked up as many points as he did last year. And certainly for Logan, I think, 1 point wasn't good enough in hindsight. He should have been able to capitalize on a couple of more opportunities. He should have avoided a couple more crashes than he, ended up, seeing there. But he was also a rookie. I think this is another conversation we go back to all the time as well. We don't give rookies very much time to improve on these mistakes before we say, okay, well, he clearly didn't work out. Let's move on to the next rookie in line and let's see what he can do. And I think that I often wonder how much talent or potential are we losing by that? Just because somebody doesn't go pull Lewis Hamilton and set the world on fire and almost win a championship his rookie year, that's what makes the Hamiltons and the, Ty Gibbses, in NASCAR of the world. That's what makes them so special and so incredible in their talents and what they can do on track, is because rookies aren't supposed to do that. To be frank, rookies are supposed to make mistakes. Rookies are supposed to, go through the motions and try to learn, how their car handles and, how to improve on their skill set throughout the year. And then ideally they come back next year and they show you what they learned and they take that step forward and it continues to go up from there. So
actually they get their sophomore slump and then the third year they show you what they can do.
Well, but again, is 2 years even enough in the grand scheme of things? And I think that's a question that needs to be asked as well.
I don't think Formula One gives you enough time to show what you can actually do because the seats are so limited. The talent is so high,
Yeah.
and the money is so expensive.
Well, again, what would help the seats not be as limited as they are, right? Adding another team or two.
Add a team. Here we go.
But they don't seem interested in that. So
I will say for Williams, they have one of the best sponsor activations in the field on the top exhaust, the Duracell. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much here, but it leaves a sour taste in my mouth what happened this weekend. And at a time where the sport has, and I don't want to make this, because people got on my case on Twitter and saying, I was making it too nationalistic. And, I think there's something to be said for that aspect of it. I don't think that that's the entire issue, because I want to be clear. I mean, if the roles were reversed and Logan Sargeant had picked up, 20, 30 points last year and Alex Albon hadn't, and Sargeant had crashed this weekend, I wouldn't be a fan of them putting him in the car for Alex. It doesn't help that, we're American F1 fans. We want to see somebody out there representing our country in a sport that, to be frank, hasn't had very much of that in recent years. And certainly on the heels of the Andretti deal, it doesn't make you feel very good either. But, it wasn't just an American issue for me. I'd have an issue, on principle with anybody getting pulled from their race seat because of a mistake that their teammate made that they didn't. And that was the issue to me, was that for all the talk that, Logan Sargeant does nothing but crash and spin, and he's worse than Nikita Mazepin, and he's the worst driver on the grid, and he finished 21st in a 20-car championship last year in the points. He didn't make the mistake this weekend. His teammate did. And his teammate ends up taking his car. Again, I'm not saying I don't understand it from the business perspective, but it is not a good look to me. And I can't wrap my head around it any other way. So if people disagree, that's their right. There was certainly a lot of that on social media this weekend. I appreciate those that kept it respectful and allowed the discussion to continue. I think we need more of that. I think we need more of that healthy dialogue, and it's a rarity these days. So thank you to those who engaged in the discussion and kept it respectful like that. I truly appreciate it, but I'm going to hold firm. I just do not like how this weekend played out. And again, unfortunately, because, Logan Sargeant is an American, and it comes on the heels of Andretti Global not being let into the sport, at least for the time being. I don't see how this is going to, it's certainly not going to help when it comes to trying to stop the bleeding from American fans, being bored with the Red Bull dominance and frustrated that, a team of theirs here in America that wants to come into the sport has been told no. But I will say, on that note, at least we got a different winner this weekend, and we have some sort of parity and maybe a tease of, Checo Perez saying that Carlos Sainz would have won anyway. Even if Max Verstappen hadn't had that issue, maybe we're going to get a closer battle than we might think. I still think Red Bull's going to be pretty dominant and run away with it at the end of the day, but maybe Ferrari can win 3 races this year instead of just 1 like we did last year, and we can get some different drivers up on the top step of that podium after all.
I'm not holding my breath, but for someone, I just want to poke fun at you a little bit. For someone who said they weren't going to pay attention to Formula One this year, save some of our group chats, it seems like you've been pretty occupied with all the news going on.
I said I wasn't going to watch it. I said I never said I'm not going to follow it and be able to comment on it on our shows here.
So you haven't seen a lap? Not a lap?
Well, I didn't watch Australia. I promise you that.
Okay.
I was sound asleep at midnight. I mean, our group chat was going crazy. Like,
yeah.
I think Jackson even called me out by name and said, like, "Hey Ben, it's going to happen. Somebody else is going to win." And
Ben was going.
Yeah. Well, I woke up at 5:50 in the morning to head to a track meet, and I was certainly tired from that. So I've been awake for pretty much 18 hours at that point anyway. I don't know, but regardless, I would have been able to stay up through Australia. But again, it used to be fun. I used to enjoy staying up until 3 a.m. to watch these races. There were sometimes, I'd go to bed at 8 p.m. and I'd wake up at midnight and then watch the race and then go back to bed at 2:30 and, get up at 7:30 and still get 9 hours of sleep. I just divided into a 4-hour segment here and a 5-hour segment there so I could still watch the race. It's just, it's very hard to stay invested when it's as predictable as it is. And you're frustrated from the American vantage point with Andretti being told no, and now what happened to Logan this weekend. So You know, I mean, I don't begrudge those that continue to enjoy it or watch it. And again, you know, in full disclosure, if I had known that that tweet would have made the rounds as much as it did, I probably would have been a little less strong in my tone and worded a little bit more carefully there. So my apologies for that, but I stand by the rest of it. It's especially on the heels of NASCAR having such a great start to the year. It's not very fun to be an F1 fan in the States right now. And, you know, that's just my personal opinion.
To quote KB, if you don't like that kind of racing, don't even watch.
Well, that's
what's happening.
Do we want to open that can of worms? Because
no, we don't.
Connor Daly made some comments earlier today on the heels of the Thermal Club. I don't know. I'm going to have to catch. I know our friend Alex is taping Gay Racing Podcast right now, so he certainly was fired up about that. But we're coming up on an hour here. Thank you guys for sticking with us. No, it's been a little bit of a different format tonight with some technical difficulties here, but
podcast style.
Podcast style. We made the show work. Before we go into the closing here, our friend Kobe Lambeth, good to see you, Kobe. How do you think Logan Sargeant will respond to this moving forward? Will it motivate or break him? This is another point that Ed brought up in his comment. You know, and to Ed's credit, I think he had a point here. If Logan lets something like this completely destroy him and break him and mentally just wreck him, then, you know, you can make the argument he never should have been an F1 to begin with. And I think, you know, it probably sounds a little bit harsh, but I think there is some truth to that. You know, if you're going to be a driver in this series at the pinnacle of motorsport, you can't let things like this totally define you. And I want to give Logan a lot of credit because, you know, when I first got the news, there was a part of me that's like, you know, if this had been me, I would have been on the next flight home. I'd be looking for an IndyCar ride tomorrow morning. You know, I would be that fed up.
And he could Logan, get it if he wanted it.
Yeah. And Logan stayed at the track. He went through, I saw him on social media this weekend. You know, they were doing the typical, you know, team bits and games that they do to post the Instagram reels and TikToks and everything. And he was a part of that. He was taking pictures with the fans, signing autographs. He was a total pro, handled it far better than I think I would have. This is going to be the true test for him now, because if he can use this as fuel to his fire to go out and, you know, show that he has improved and pick up a couple of points here and there and gain those positions and gain those results, then I think maybe we'll look back on this as a blessing in disguise and what he needed to be whipped into shape and show those improvements. But on the other hand, I think it's, you know, he's got to be very careful here. These next couple of races are going to be critical, because the other side of it is I think it's going to be very easy for him now to get it in his head that, you know, the team doesn't believe in him and they sat him out for a mistake that his teammate made because they were that much more confident in his teammate despite that mistake. You know, so it's going to be very critical over these next couple of rounds how he responds and bounces back, because he's going to have to bounce back. Otherwise, you know, I think he's already kind of been on the hot seat, and, you know, there are some rumors coming out today that maybe AlphaTauri's given Daniel Ricciardo an ultimatum. You know, we don't want to speak on that too much, but Liam Lawson, I think a lot of people saw him as a contender for that last Williams seat. They were battling, he and Logan were, you know, when they were in Formula 2, and probably a situation where he should have been on the grid this year and things just didn't work out. But this is a business, you know, as you always say, Kobe, it's, you know, what have you done for me lately? And I think if Logan goes out and uses this as motivation and picks up some good results, you know, he'll put those discussions to bed. If he can't do that, if he's consistently not even getting close to getting out of Q1, if he's consistently the last car running, then I think it's very hard for me to see him back with Williams in 2025. He's probably on his way to IndyCar or something else here in the States, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, one thing's for sure. If you're an American Formula One fan and you've got some heartbreak from the recent months, I think I speak for some when I say that this gives you a great storyline to, you know, come on, Logan, what can you do? Do it for America.